Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Sweeney. I'm the Deputy Mayor. The Mayor is out of town working this week and couldn't join us this evening. With that said, I'd like to bring this meeting of the City Council to order for July 18th, 2022. And with that, I would like to call this to order. And next on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Nathan, will you lead us, please? With that said, next we have communications from the public. This is, since we have no public hearings this evening, we're not worried about this. Any member of the public that wishes to speak to us about anything, please come up forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Nathan Dugan, 937 Kalispell Avenue. Make a couple quick comments here, but wanted to address the request from the snow bus for additional funding. Looks like the money's there since staff recommended it, so obviously I agree with that. Kind of going back to the work session discussion a little bit earlier on, I would like the council to maybe explore going a little bit further, maybe with a few stipulations. Think that as someone who lives a couple blocks away from a snow bus stop, the service is kind of inadequate. So I think if there's maybe some additional funding that might have been saved by not having to buy solar panels this fiscal year or having to construct a solar plant. Kind of want to keep those in mind because I think that probably the city would have spent maybe $100,000 to buy some solar panels in an alternate reality, but maybe seems like you're not going to go that way now. So maybe there's tens of thousands of dollars more that could go to increase the frequency of the snow bus pickups during the day, because even somebody that likes to take it and it's close to my house, I don't take it all that often because I don't want to plan my day around hour and 10-minute increments. So like if we could get it down to maybe 30-minute increments, and I don't know how much additional funding that would be, I would like that to be something that could be explored through this process. And then, as maybe you know or you don't know, the governor did appoint me last week to his newly created Housing Advisory Council. Our first meeting for that committee will be on Wednesday at 2:00 p.m. Those meetings are all open to the public and hybrid, so there is a Zoom link. Public comment will be accepted. I'm pretty optimistic that there's going to be some good things that come out of there, but I'm sure that there's going to be some things that are a little scary that are talked about in that room as well. So definitely tune into those, and feel free to send me an email if you have any comments on anything, since I'll be sitting in that room. Thanks.
Thanks, Nathan.
Good evening. Vincenzo Saravo, 1013 Wisconsin Avenue, Unit A. I am one of a few members that have decided to try to bring back the Whitefish Lake Triathlon, and we will be doing it on August 14th at 9 a.m. at City Beach. I see we have some support. That's a good thing. So for those of you that don't know, the Whitefish Triathlon was successful for 8 years, and then COVID happened, and just like everything else, it all fell apart. Past 2 years, we tried bringing it back. The old race director did not have much success with that, and so a few of us have decided to try to bring it back. We are going to do it. Nor rain, nor sleet, no snow, nor viral disease. We will be doing it on August 14th. So the triathlon consists of a half-mile swim in our beautiful lake, a 12-mile bike ride along Lakeshore Drive, and a 5K run inside of Dakota, LeBrie, and Wisconsin and back. It is a USTA sanctioned event, which means there'll be prizes, food for the athletes. It's going to be a good, a little bit of fun. It's beginner friendly, which is what we're hoping to do, is bring in people who haven't done triathlon, maybe they've done 5Ks, other things like that, and try to bring them into triathlon. Triathlon has been an ever-growing sport for the past 10 years. As you all know, Whitefish has a huge community of athletes here, pro athletes, elite athletes, and amateur athletes like myself. We have the marathon, we have the last best ride, which have all been successful, and what we need to do now is bring triathlon back to this community. Myself and the people that are trying to promote it are hoping to grow it in the next few years to maybe even one day have a 70.3 Ironman here, which would be great. So what I'm asking of you is to support us. Sign up for the race, be there, volunteer, do anything you can to promote people to sign up. What we need is 50 to 60 people for athletes and 20 volunteers. So I ask the city leadership, the citizens, to do your part. Sign up, be there, and support this. This is a great opportunity for this city to grow in a positive light. So if you guys have any other questions, I'll be closing my tab at the Northern. I'll see you later, and thank you. Good night.
Vincenzo, one moment, Vincenzo. Just, I assume you're running these traps already. To the extent you're going to run this at City Beach, you've already been in conversation with the Parks Department so that you can get your permits and everything else that you're going to need?
Yes, all the documentation is in place. We
Good.
have our permit. We have a permit for one of the gazebos.
Perfect.
We have the food vendors. Everything is in place.
Good.
The last piece of it is the people. We need volunteers and we need athletes to sign up. We need you to spread the word to all the people that you know so that they can go ahead and sign up. The race is very inexpensive. I've done races that have paid thousands of dollars for it. This is $60. So please sign up, be there for us so that we can hopefully grow it.
Is there going to be a team aspect to this?
Yes, there are teams. You can sign up as a relay team. So that means if you can't swim, then get somebody that can swim and
I can
just
swim,
jump on
I
your bike.
can't run or ride. So
That's
we're
perfect.
good.
I can do neither of the three events, but somehow I happen to make myself do it. But yes, there will be a relay aspect to it. So if you can't do one part of it, you can do the others. Find some people to help you out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, exactly, yeah. I don't think so.
My daughter was sent.
All right,
Perfect. That's great. Well, if you can't be in town, I know some of you travel, just spread the word for us. Try to help us get some of the other people in the community to know, be aware of it. Unfortunately, this was a last-minute hustle to try to get this on for us, and that was our fault. We were a little underprepared for it. But if we can successfully do it this year, then next year we'll have more support and it'll just continue to grow.
Great, thank you,
So before
sir.
I run back to my tab, anybody else have any questions? No? All right, well, thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Great. August 14th.
August 14th, 9 a.m., City Beach. Run sign up is where you can find your method of sign up. And we also have developed a web page, which is Whitefish Lake Triathlon. So you can just do a Google search, Whitefish Lake Triathlon, and you'll find all the information you need.
Great.
Cool?
Good,
All right,
thank you,
good?
sir. All right,
All right, good evening.
bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Jenny Cloutier with the Big Mountain Commercial Association, P.O. Box 4608 here in Whitefish. I'm just here if there are any questions and in support of our ask for an increase in funding. As I mentioned in my letter, the snow bus is actually now providing more routes in the summer than we did in the winter of 2006. So while Nathan, I want us to have a bus that runs in Whitefish every single day of the year, we are trying to expand and have expanded greatly even in the last 3 years since I've been working with the BMCA. And fuel costs have gone up, the costs of everything to do with buses have gone up, and it would greatly help us if we could see an increase in support from the city. Do you guys have, is there any questions at all that I can answer? Can I do that right now? All right.
No, we'll do that at the time if you want to stick around.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys. I appreciate you looking into this.
Great. No further public comment here. Any online, Michelle? Okay, good. With that, we'll close public comment. And any communications from any volunteer boards? Not seeing any in the audience. Any online? Nope. Any from the council? I can report from the park board that we are struggling a bit with some of the requests that have been made for the use of Depot Park that would include the parking of very heavy vehicles actually in the park when that's currently against the rules for using that park. We're looking at whether or not there's some facilities or something that can be put down on a temporary basis to not create the problems with the turf that we've had in the past. So we're going to create a little bit of an experiment this season, the end of the season for August, and then into October for Oktoberfest. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll go back to no parking in the park. But it's what's on our agenda. So that said, that's all I had from the Park Board anyway. Next on our agenda, so we have no public hearings, and we have our communications from our city manager. Dana. Oh, the consent agenda, all right. The consent agenda, do I have a motion or any corrections?
Go ahead. And I second it.
Any further comment? All those in favor, raise your right hand. And all those opposed, passes unanimously. And now, on to our communications from the city manager. Dana.
Right. Thank you, Frank. You have my manager's report in your packets. Just a couple items that I'd like to point out. First is that we have hired a finance director. Lainey will be joining us from West Yellowstone. She is their finance director right now. She'll be coming on board September 6th. She's going to help them get through their budget, as I'll get us through our budget. But we are very excited to have her join our team. Also, within my report, I did mention the work that we have done leading up to the Under the Big Sky event. Just wanted to touch on a few things. You know, we worked as much as we could with the event organizers, both those who held after parties is what they were calling them, official after parties at bars locally here in town, as well as the actual event organizers of the larger event. We prepared by making sure that our garbage service along Central Avenue was addressed, but I have heard that there may have been some challenges with commercial properties having their garbage overflow in the alleys. Just to give the council a little bit of a background on how we handle overflowing garbage for commercial properties. If we do get complaints and we monitor those containers, we will reach out to them and let them know they need to increase their pickups. This weekend is hard to know if it's going to be an ongoing occurrence or if it was due to events that they held or illegal dumping that does occur in our 300-gallon containers downtown. We have had complaints from business owners about that, where people will drive down the alleys and actually dump their household trash. With a lot of campers in town, that could have occurred. But just know that we are aware of that, and we will, if we can find out which businesses had the issues and people do want to let us know, we could at least reach out to the business owners and let them know that there was a problem and that our code requires that they keep their trash contained within those containers. The other items that we really weren't able to solve was cell phone usage. Obviously, if you tried to use your data to search the web at all, even in town, I don't think any of us could. I was able to make phone calls, but text messages and data were difficult to use. I would say that we worked as much as we could to encourage the event organizers to work with the Flathead County Office of Emergency Services to get some of those units in town that could help boost cell phone service. My understanding is that OES and the event organizers were not able to obtain any type of equipment, and so we were left working without it. I will ask Bridger to give an update because I don't know how it went for him and his staff. I know that we were prepared with radios, but Bridger, if you want to just give an update of how it went this weekend from a police standpoint, that'd be great.
Do you have a red light?
Depending on fire for a backup here, so.
Really prepared, that's
Yeah.
fine.
The event went well on the police standpoint. We brought on we had 8 officers working each night, Friday and Saturday night, not including myself. We had downtown patrol, foot patrol, mobile patrol. I think it went fairly well. We monitored the bus unload, which was behind the library parking lot, which is a nice place to have it. Keeps everybody little area to spread out and find their way back in town rather than dropping them off on Central Avenue. As for the cell service, those type of things, we put a few things in place, you know, testing our digital channels and our analog channels, and they work fine. The internet service did complicate our mobile data terminals where we get and receive our information from dispatch, but we were able to run that over the radio, so we were able to get that information. We just went back a few years, what we used to do. So other than that, I think it went well. There was a few issues, but nothing that wasn't prepared for. So went well.
Thanks, Bridger. I have just one more item to add. Right now, our agenda for August 1st is looking very empty. We have one potential resolution that could be pushed back a couple months, or not a couple months, excuse me, a couple meetings. So just a heads up, we may not be holding the August 1st meeting if there is no agenda. And so, but be prepared. I give that with a warning, because August 15th, if Planning Board does act on all of their items, you add the budget to that, and we will have one of the largest agendas probably that you'll see on August 15th. And yet Giuseppe's already given notice that he's not going to be here, so the rest of you better show up for it. So before he knew the agenda. But just wanted to give you a heads up there that if we don't have agenda items, we will cancel that meeting.
That's great, Dan. Question, I'm sensing from you there's no way to accelerate any of the items that we might otherwise end up with on the 15th, so we could balance the, balance, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately with the staffing, with staff vacations, but also the advertising that's already gone out and the budget deadline, and when we'll get taxable value. I was even trying to think, like, could I push the budget up? But I can't, because we won't get the value till that day.
That's fine, that's fine. Anyway, that's great, thank you. Any questions for Dana on her report?
Dana, is there, if the organizers of the event aren't going to do the boosting, can we do that as a city next year if they have it again? So it was really, took a long time to get cell coverage. And I was thinking, for people that don't have landlines, it's a safety issue too. So I'm just wondering if we could do something next year.
You know, really the responsibility falls to the county on this one, because it is, one, their event, it's in their jurisdiction, but also, you know, really what's impacted the most negatively is the 911 calls, right? Being able to place an emergency call. And I don't think, you know, we would probably have a difficult time obtaining those units without the county actually, as OES, coming in and saying we need them for emergency management. I don't think that we'll be able to get them similar to what the event organizers said. But Joe or Bridger, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, as a private event, we have a hard time getting them because they're all out on wildland fires across the country. So I doubt we'll ever see one for the private event in July.
And it doesn't help the private event either. It's just for emergency services. Those cows come from the FEMA, and they're just utilized for emergency services. So we would have access to those to be able to communicate. It wouldn't help the public's issue with the cellular service. The event themselves are going to have to put in infrastructure to correct that issue.
I will let you know that we have had I've had two contacts with Verizon. They are looking at adding additional, well, they're looking at 5G on our 2 towers that we currently lease to them, as well as some other modifications, and I don't know if that's to boost service. I haven't gotten into the details there, but I'm sure that they are aware, at least, that they have cell coverage issues during the summer here.
Dana, if I might, a little birdie whispered into my ear once upon a time, I think, that the permit for Under the Big Sky is coming up for renewal with the county for next year. Will we have an opportunity to have any input on what conditions they need to put on that permit to continue to operate?
Honestly, I don't know if it was a permit that was temporary. It was through a conditional use permit that I believe allowed for, 3 concert days. Technically 1 event. I think they've gotten it under 3 concert days, or 2 events, two days, and then they were able to add the 3rd day. But I don't know If that is the case, I can reach out to the county so that we do know when we can provide comment, but I do not know if it's coming up for a renewal or if it is a renewal
Okay.
like that.
Great. In any case, I think it might be helpful for the event organizers as well as the county and anybody else that we can bend their ear on, that this is a significant problem that's ongoing, needs to be solved. They are just usurping this community's assets, and we're not able to even use what this community needs. So, but I just think that's, and put in the context of fairness, maybe everybody will agree.
And there is a meeting that is scheduled for tomorrow to debrief with the municipalities and the county before scheduling an in-person meeting with the event organizers. So we will make sure that we have somebody in attendance.
Great, great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Dana on her report? Not seeing any. Consideration of a proposed lease.
Great. So you get to hear from me all this evening. On June 30th of this year, Sobacycle vacated the west side of our retail space in the parking structure. And we held a work session on July 5th earlier this month to discuss moving forward with that lease space. Yoga Hive Montana had a first right of refusal, and although this isn't the typical process for a first right of refusal, the council provided direction to negotiate with Shell of Yoga Hive Montana to lease both spaces. We have had some challenges over the past couple years with sound transferring between the units given how the spaces are built. The sheetrock does not go all the way to the ceiling. With the corrugated metal roofing, you get a lot of sound transfer between the two facilities. And so it made sense to work with Shell, who is very interested in the additional unit, to come up with a proposed lease. So in your packet, you do have the proposed lease document. While Angie is not here this evening, she did review that lease. And as with our previous leases, the only comment that she provided me was that the renewal period is automatic, but she also understands that there's reasons for that when there is investment in costs for our lessees. So with that, we have negotiated a proposed lease that is a 5-year lease for both spaces, and that would also include a 5-year automatic renewal if the tenant is in compliance with all of the conditions of the lease. The lease would begin August 1st of this year, and the longer term really is a guarantee for her improvements because the space is provided as is. We did not make, the only item that we're going to address in that space is one exterior window that had a rock chip from a vehicle outside. The lease with Sobacycle required that the tenant and city split the cost of repairing those windows because of the risk of outside issues. And at that time, Sobacycle did not want to invest in that cost because it was a very small rock chip and hadn't spidered. Well, since then it's spidered completely. So we will replace that window at the full city's cost, but moving forward, any exterior windows would still be split 50-50 between tenant and the city. So the total cost for the lease is going to be is proposed at $5,950 per month, and that's for the full 2,813 square feet. Before we had leased these at a per square foot cost, but in talking with our realtor, that the per month cost was more understandable, and given that we have, which would be a net, sometimes you have where they're like a triple net lease where there's taxes, insurance, and maintenance addressed. Here we are actually paying the taxes because it is there is no way for us to actually separate off those two units from our assessments very easily. And we also haven't been paying taxes on that space as it's owned by us. And then the maintenance is provided by the tenants, And then the insurance, they also cover insurance. So it wasn't a full triple net, it was kind of a different way of doing it. So to make it clear, we just did a per month amount. So what that $5,950 is, it includes $30 per square foot for the new space, but we have taken the lease that Yoga Hive Montana actually has for the remainder of their lease and took that monthly price and increased it by the CPI, what would be adjusted in the next 2 years. So we did do an adjustment on her current rent, as well as add that $30 per square foot for the new space. So in knowing that there was also an additional 5-year automatic renewal, we didn't want to go to the full $30 per square foot because there would be no point in for her to want to have one lease. But this way, they're all under one lease. They have the same renewal period, and then it just makes it easier to manage overall. One unique thing that we've done here, and this is at the request of Shell, was to not require the last month's rent to be held by the city. She has been extremely timely with her payments. We did request in this lease would require that the security deposit be the full month's rent of $5,950. We would refund her current deposit and then have her make that full amount deposit, so it's very clean in our records, in case one of us leaves, or for any reason. Sorry. Anyways. So this is just one of the unique conditions that I have agreed to, but it's something council could change their mind. But I'm confident that with that performance deposit, we would at least be secured. The other item that we changed was to permit the owner's dog into the space. Other dogs are obviously prohibited with the exception of service dogs. This was because Shell has her one dog that she would like to bring into the space, and I feel that the owner who is responsible for maintaining that space would be very cautious of how their dog approaches it. Before we did not allow dogs, we had issues with the other tenant bringing in a puppy, which was noisy and barking, and that's why we did not want dogs in the space. But now if both spaces are rented, there is no issue that we'll see with the other tenant having noise issues. So with that, the total amount that the city will see for the lease revenue is about $71,400. That will be an increase. The lease revenue will increase by $20,000, about almost $21,000 compared to the prior years. So with that, I respectfully recommend that City Council approve the proposed lease and authorizes the city manager to execute the commercial lease of the retail space in the parking structure to Yoga Hive, Montana.
Turn it back to council for questions or a motion.
Did I read it right that we were comparing our rates to Seattle's rates, or was that just the CPI? Because I couldn't figure out why Seattle was being referenced.
So that's the CPI rate that we utilized, was the closest metropolitan area, and that was in the current lease, the current lease that's actually in effect right now for Yoga Hive, Montana.
Thanks.
Carry on.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the city manager to commence with the lease agreement for the Yoga Hive rental agreement.
And I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I think it's only natural that she brings the dog with the down dog posture, and she needs to do that.
But we don't know whether her dog does down dog. Anyway, with that said, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. This brings us on to our final item for the evening prior to adjournment, which is comments from mayor and councilor. And we'll start.
Oh, I have one more item.
No, Bus. Yep. And still Dana.
Great, still me.
Thanks.
Thank you. So you've
Thank you.
already heard this evening, but in your packet is a staff report and a letter from the Big Mountain Commercial Association requesting an increase in the city's annual contribution for the snow bus. Since fiscal year 2003, the city has provided a contribution for the snow bus. The annual contribution amount was increased to $7,500 per year back in fiscal year 2006 and has remained the same since then. So they have requested an increase from the $75,000 to $15,000. They have, as mentioned earlier, added additional routes and extended hours, both in the summer, and summer service was established in 2015. These changes have helped lessen traffic impacts and supports the city's goals of sustainable tourism and alternative means of transportation. And you have the letter within the packet. We currently have the $7,500 budgeted in the FY23 preliminary budget. And I do believe that we have adequate funds to support the additional funding requests within the general fund. So staff respectfully recommends the City Council consider the request for an increase in the annual contribution for the snow bus to $15,000 and direct the city manager to include the additional $7,500 in the FY23 budget.
Any questions for Dana? Any questions for Jenny?
When do we get a west route, Jenny? You can? Oh, that's awesome. Yes, I'd love to hear the answer to that.
So we looked into bringing back the route out to Grouse this year, and it creates such a difference in the time that before when we had that east-west route, we're losing ridership because the amount of time it would take you to get from the mountain all the way back to the mall with that stop in the middle was creating, like, it would take you more than an hour to get to the mountain from the mall, and that does not incentivize ridership. I have great hopes that at some point we're going to have a more robust transportation system in our town that would have an east-west route as well that ran all year. But we just couldn't right now, and there's this other problem with drivers. We are like by the skin of our teeth right now covering the routes we have, and like I've added routes every year I've worked with the snow bus, and they've asked that maybe I didn't add any more routes this year. So at some point I'd love to see that also, Steve. Yeah.
So that was a very long-winded way to say no. We're not having. Not yet. Thanks, Jenny. I'd like to make a motion if.
Please.
Unless anybody else has a comment. I would move that that City Council increase the annual contribution for the snow bus to $15,000 and direct the city manager to include the additional $7,500 in the fiscal year 2023 budget.
Seconded by Councilor Fury. Any further discussions? All those in favor? Oh, Andy?
Yeah, just a quick comment to reiterating Mr. Dugan's comments too. And I mean, I think the only complaint I ever hear is frequency of buses going up and down the hill. That, and unless somebody bequeaths you a locker in their will, there's no lockers to. That's not your fault, but it is the mountain's fault. So, you know, hopefully over the years to come, we can work somehow with the city cooperatively and whatever else we can come up with. I'm looking at Craig over there and grant funding, I know transportation, all those kind of things, but it's something that I think you could double your ridership with double amount of trips up and down the hill. I think it's, but do people do the hourly schedule, particularly for the downhill folks, it's problematic in the afternoon, I know. So, but, and I get it. That's just goal for the future, I get it.
With that said, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign. That motion carries unanimously. And now we go on to communications from councilors. And I'll start with you, Giuseppe. Nothing? Steve? Nothing? Ben? Andy?
I hate to break a string, so I'll have nothing.
Okay, good, thank you. With that, anything further from staff? Yes, ma'am.
I think so. So, next, I don't know. So with planning board, my understanding
yeah,
is both
thank you.
Frank and Steve are unavailable. And while there is a quorum potentially confirmed right now without a council representative, it is a very large agenda, as we know. So is that something you guys want to appoint an alternate for this one meeting?
Is there a volunteer or somebody that can be available? Thursday. 6 o'clock, right? Did you go? You've done this before. I know. You're not, you're not leading, you're just, they've got a vice chair. Yeah. Okay, I think any opposition to Rebecca going? Seeing none, she goes. Is that good enough for you?
Sure, that
Good.
should be fine.
All right, you've got the ball. All right, and with that, we're adjourned. Thanks. Done.